I am happy to have Automotive Seminars as a sponsor for the show. Now, if you're not familiar, Automotive Seminars is a diagnostic technician training company. They've got a website that there'll be a link to in the show notes. And what they offer is top-notch training to technicians like us in the field. I've been taking their training courses for years and have got a ton of benefit out of it. They've got top-notch instructors, John Thornton, Scott Shotton, Scott Manna, and every other month they've got a 2-night course that you can sign up for. Join in, ask questions, and afterwards, you've paid for the course, you can access a recorded version whenever you want. You can rewatch the class 2 years later in case you wanted some details on it, and that is a fantastic feature. So make sure to check out the website to see what courses they have available and what's coming up in the future. This podcast is brought to you by Jarhead Diagnostics. Jarhead Diagnostics manufactures in-house diagnostic equipment and storage solutions, as well as distributes for companies like Pico, ATS, and TopDon. One of my favorite tools that I've bought from Brandon and Jarhead Diag is the case for the U-Scope. If you don't have a U-Scope, you probably should, but if you have one, you got to get one of these 3D printed cases, has a magnet on it, has a full-size BNC lead that you can connect to, and it gets rid of the weak point of that scope, which is the mini BNC connection, which is pretty fragile. This case makes this thing nice and secure and makes it an even better tool than it was. So check out jarheaddiag.com. The link is in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, L1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out L1training.com. We have got Auto Rescue Tools and Isaac Rodell as a sponsor for this podcast. Hey guys, if you're looking for programming laptops, you want the laptop set up ready to go for programming control modules on vehicles, you need key cutting equipment, you need diagnostic tools, Isaac is your guy. Has all that stuff available for purchase, and the support that he offers along with the purchase has been outstanding. I bought some stuff from him in the past. I got my Dolphin key cutting tool from him several years back. And again, the support has been phenomenal. Helped me out along the way with anything additional I needed to make it work for me. Also, for the month of June 2023, they've got Autel updates for sale. So make sure to check that out as well. Again, that's autorescuetools.com. The link will be in the show notes. Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and today on the show, we're going to do the second part of the 2021 year-end roundup. So if you listen to the episode I released on Sunday, put out a bunch of audio clips from some of the most downloaded episodes of 2021, the episodes that all of you listen to the most. Grab some audio clips from each one of those. We're going to continue on with that. Just as a reference, I'll announce the different episodes and give you the episode number in between. And there are several episodes where I grab multiple audio clips in between the audio clips, just to give you a point of reference to know, hey, I'm switching up to a different point of the podcast. I'm going to give you the GM failure to program, beep, boop. And that way, you know, okay, we're on a different part of the podcast. Now, if you want to listen to the entire episode, of course, you have the episode number I'll give to you in the audio. The link to the episode is also in the show notes. So maybe you missed an episode. You're like, oh, that sounds like an interesting conversation. Of course, all of these are. I really liked all of these talks. You can check out the whole episode. But other than that, let's jump right into it. And we're actually going to start off with episode 83. This was a Matt and Matt show, Matt Fonslow and Matt Skundrich. And we were discussing what we wish we would have known when we started out in the automotive industry. You know, some advice to younger technicians.
Yeah, you got to know when to say no to certain things. We all want challenges, you know, but there's just certain ones that it's not worth getting married to. And we've all been there.
And you bring up a valuable point. You got to know when to say no. That doesn't just apply to these tuned vehicles. That applies to a job you don't have a special tool for. Like, if you're doing the Mazda timing belt and you don't have the tools to hold that friggin' crank pulley in there and you think, oh, I'm going to make it. Let me tell you a trade secret. You're not. I was diagnosed 2 a week now. Oh, man, I put this timing stuff on there now. It doesn't start. Hey, can I see your Mazda special tools to do the timing? Oh, no, we don't have them. Oh, okay, well, take it apart, find somebody with the tools, borrow them, put it back together with the tools, and it'll start. That'd be $150. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye. I don't even pull any tools out of my truck. Like, know when to say no.
Yeah, and it's not even special tools. Like, follow some of the Facebook groups pages and read how many of these techs are working for shops with no service information. Like, their service information is whatever they can Google. And then it's just figure it out on your own. And I'm not even thinking like diag type stuff. I'm thinking take it apart, put it back together, you wing it. And then when things go sideways, you're on the all these different enthusiast forums trying to figure it out. And
I miss the old Facebook.
But it just wouldn't the advice be that you got to find a good environment for yourself, and that would not be a good environment. You know, sure, maybe the pay is okay and whatnot, but how are you going to really start improving without having like the basic necessities such as information and, like you said, the tools to do the job properly? I don't know. It's almost like I don't know how it would translate, but it's almost like cultural as a mechanic from, I don't know, the blacksmithing days, you know, when the horseless carriages first started coming out and the mechanics were the blacksmiths, that we get a kick out of the workaround, the building our own tools out of whatever's laying around the shop. There's some angle iron over here and duct tape and whatever, chicken wire and stuff. And I'm going to make the tool just like the picture on the forum, or
Sure.
I don't know what that is, but we seem to really get off on that.
No, that is long gone. I realized I lost more money being that way than just telling the boss, hey, F off, I'm not doing it.
Well, especially now, right? With techs kind of have some leverage in their favor, that if you're capable or even beyond capable, like if you have a good attitude and are willing to learn and can learn and find the shop every morning on time, that you're probably almost instantly hireable.
behind the shop in the morning.
Yeah, I like how you said
Sorry,
that.
that was funny. I'm over here going, I have no idea what else he just said. I'm trying not to die laughing, Dad.
You're in a good position to improve your situation, both like very selfishly, like your income, benefits, all that, which is, that's good. But also as a professional, you can improve your situation and man, start rewarding the, for lack of a better term, the quote unquote good shops, however you want to interpret that. I don't want to get into a big semantics battle, but these good shops start getting the payoff of making the investment in tooling, training, compensation, all that you're in a not so great situation. They're not interested in upgrading or changing some of that, whatever culture, if you will, or environment, or go to a place that will. We seem to be really anchored to bad situations too. And I don't know if that's a blacksmithing thing too. I don't know.
No, you know what it is? We don't. We're there. We're making money. We have a paycheck. We know what the paycheck is going to be roughly at that place. We don't mind the status quo of what's going on. Sure, we'd like better, but to uproot our whole system of comforts is just so much anxiety that we won't do it. So you sit there and you kill yourself for nothing. Like, learning to leave a job is well worth it. Now, I kind of went to the extreme. I'll tell you a little funny story about moving jobs. So I got engaged. I moved jobs. I was there for like 4 months. We got married. I moved jobs. I was at that job for a couple months. I moved jobs. So I was at that job for a couple months. I think I had like 6 jobs within like the first year I was married, right? I just shop hopped. And it was probably one of the most eye-opening experiences to shop hop. Now, granted, the one job I left was because it was an hour drive one way to work, right? Like, that's just ridiculous to do when you're newly married because you want to actually come home. There's stuff to do when you come home.
As opposed to now?
So
you're being recorded.
That's okay. She won't listen. So I shop hopped and I realized that I was getting more money every time I hopped, which was kind of a bonus. But at the same time, I went from the shop that was an hour away where I was like, hey man, it says I need this tool to do this Maserati clutch. Do we have it? Yeah, we'll get it. Just push Carl back. I'll order that tool. Well, you think we're going to do more Maserati clutches? Because, like, seriously, like, it's a $6,000 tool. Well, we'll get it. We'll probably get more in if we have it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he'd buy the tool. Then I went to a shop where the guy was like, oh, I have Mitchell on CD. If you need anything newer, let me know. I'll call my buddy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not working here long. Like, that's the end of that.
Yeah, there's something to that, though. I remember reading an article in, I think it was Motor Magazine, and there was a columnist out of New York, Bob Cirillo. I don't know if he writes for him anymore, but he's the shop owner, and he would talk about some of his very best techs, very best hires were rehires. Like, as a manager, shop owner, you can't be delusional in that you're providing such a great culture, such a great job. But, it doesn't hurt to be honest too, that maybe you do offer a pretty decent place to work. And with that confidence, and hopefully you're, accurate in that confidence, somebody leaves because the grass is greener on the other side and they go find out it isn't. Not rehiring him back could be a mistake because some of his very best, most loyal employees are rehires. They went and saw that the grass isn't really greener over here. Darn it.
Mm-hmm.
It must be the way the sun hit it. I don't know. But they come back and they're now loyal. Like, I had it really good. I didn't recognize it. Now I do. There's a lot to that, and on both sides, from a management standpoint of the rehire and the technician standpoint, to go and try a few different things and learn, like, hey, you know what? This place is a really good place to work. Like, okay, nowhere's perfect, But this imperfection is way better than that imperfection.
Except for
Yeah.
Fanslow's shop. It's pretty perfect.
No, it's so far from perfect.
Fanslow's there. It would
First
just
one,
be
I'm
perfect.
there. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
only-
That's why I want to work there. You're like my little hero. I look up to.
Oh man, you gotta raise your standards. So raise your standards.
It's like Matt Fanslow, Justin Morgan.
Morgan would be way up there. I'm way down. Me and Bob Hype, we're kind of on the bottom.
I don't know him very well to like have an opinion about the guy other than his Facebook post cracked me up.
He's awesome. He's so much smarter than he will ever let on.
I'm so much stupider than I ever let on either.
Yeah. I got a whole bunch of people really whipped. They think,
Yes.
They think I know what I'm talking about. No idea.
Okay, next up, I've got Scott Schotten, who joined me on episode 85. We discussed the technician shortage in the automotive industry and ways that we can retain young and up-and-coming technicians in this field.
You use the word expect, and that I think is part of the issue. There is one particular shop that asked me, "Do you know anybody?" And I said, at the time I was still teaching at the college, and I said, "Yes, I have a couple of good students." Now we'll talk about this in a minute. I probably shouldn't have done it this way, but I got a couple of good students I could send your way. And I said, but they are going to be green, right? They're still in school. You're going to have to work around their schedule so that they can finish school. And you're going to have to work with them to get them some experience. If you're okay with somebody like that, right? And they have potential. I can tell, because you can probably tell some of your students, or you look at them and go, oh, yeah, okay. And other ones you go, this guy or girl is going somewhere in the industry, yep. Right? So I can send it to them. And then with the one student that actually got hired by them, I don't know if he got hired or he got shot down during the interview. I forget the whole story, but they said, oh, I wasn't experienced enough. I'm like, well, wait, the shop told me you're okay with green. You're okay with no experience. You're going to have to work with them. I sent you someone with potential and you shot him down. And I think it was a him. Shot him down. And so why are you even asking me?
Right.
Right. You told me you'd take someone that's green. Oh, no, you don't have enough experience. Well, of course, I told you that up front. So don't. That's what bugs me. It's the shops that like, yeah, we're good with that. Send them for the interview, and then they shoot them down.
Yeah.
Any of your students, first year, second year, whatever, if they go to an interview that you sent them to and they get shot down because they don't have enough experience, what does that do for their ego? What does that do for?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Their outlook.
It's crazy.
For sure. I think I know why a lot of them do it is because they've got broken cars right now and they've got numbers to hit this month and they're looking to get that person in there that can just, come in and knock out the work, but it's not realistic. And I kind of liken it to sports, right? I don't know if you're a sports fan of anything. I'm big into hockey, right? And they got it figured out, right? They have a draft.
Hockey was coming up there.
Yep. Yeah. Right. I'm wearing the shirt. So.
I'm not wearing my Golden Knights shirt, but.
Oh, okay. Well,
that was a gift. By the way. I'm more of a Blackhawks fan, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, now we have
a problem. But so they draft these 18-year-old kids, right, for their potential, right? They're not going to come in and score 50 goals in the first season, but they know the potential and they're going to give them the time in the minor leagues and they're going to build them up and they're going to put the right players around them. So in 5 to 7 years, they've got a superstar, right? And honestly, it's the same effing thing in the auto industry. You got to put the time in and risk that maybe they sign with another team, right? But
you should have a good enough shop and culture that they want to sign with you and stay on your team and be the superstar. That's the only way you're going to get them, because you can't win the cup just through free agency, right? You can't get it with just veteran players. You need some veterans on the team, right? That experience and everything, but you got to have those young kids and build them up. You got to grow them young. And it's the only way to really be successful.
That's a great analogy. I never thought about it that way, but it's a great analogy, because I mean, and I'm not a huge sports fan, but think about Michael Jordan and the Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, some of the players that came up underneath him because he pushed them. Right. He gave them stuff. And the same thing with, other sports teams or whatever the case. You put them with the right people that are willing to share.
Yep.
It brings everyone up. And I think what is this? What is the cliche? All ships rise.
Yes.
Something along those lines. So same thing in a shop environment. If you put someone, and I don't want to go back to the, book time flat rate thing, but if you work in a shop where everyone's on flat rate, you're not going to have those team players. In most cases, you're not going to have those team players. They're going to be, leave me alone because my dinner is based on how much work I get done. And the more time I spend with you, the less money I make, that kind of thing. So I think that's part of the flat rate thing that's broken.
For sure.
Right. But getting in somewhere in a team environment where you have either a shop foreman or lead tech or something like that is willing to help the younger guy or girl to learn and answer questions, and here, do it this way, because, brake jobs are a great example. There's only so many things you can talk about in class and really do in the shop. But what happens when one caliper slide sticks? How do you simulate that in class? What happens when a caliper piston sticks but the slides don't? What do the pads do? How do they wear? How do they, and you can only simulate that so many different ways. They're only going to learn that stuff after doing it for a couple of years. They're going to have to run into it, and they're going to have to do it.
Even if they do just put them on flat rate, that's looked at like a gift. At Firestone, when I worked, that was a promotion for the entry-level tech to the technician. We're going to put you on flat rate next week. And they drowned because of all the things that we talked about earlier with the pitfalls, and they don't have the experience. They don't have the proficiency. They're breaking bolts. And it was another podcast I was listening to. I think it was David and Lucas's podcast.
One.
Yes. Somebody phrased it in a way I'd never thought about before, but it's 100% correct, that flat rate is a pay system for poor shop management, right? Because flat rate manages the shop. The person who's like managing or running the shop doesn't have to do anything, right? They just let flat rate handle it. Because
Bush that said that?
It very well could have been.
It might have been Butch, but anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It probably was, but it's so. And I worked flat rate for my entire technician career, and I never thought about it that way. I just thought I'm going to work as hard as I can because my paycheck on Friday is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and when you had a 30-hour day on Monday, that made your week great because you knew that everything Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're like, bring it on.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Because I was there too. Yep. Yeah. I get it.
But that the what should be the leader, who has a very important role and a lot of responsibility and should have some certain characteristics, doesn't necessarily have to, if on a flat rate pay scale, because you're just working towards that paycheck, but it sucks for the young person just starting out. That I know personally has scared a lot of people out of this industry early when they had some potential, because you never know when somebody's going to bloom. And then that is one thing I'll tell you I learned
after I started teaching, and I talked with some of the other instructors and former students, is, hey, I like to think I can see potential in people, and I think I can at some points, but not all the time and not everybody. Sometimes it takes a lot of time and that right thing to click, and then all of a sudden they take off and they shoot from here to here, and no one can predict when that's going to happen. If they've got the passion for it, even if it doesn't seem like maybe this is for them, I want to help them. I want to try to get them there. And yeah, like you said, flat rate's not the way to get that person there, I don't think.
No, and I there's lots of discussions about how to pay, and I don't think flat rate's the right way to do it. I've been there. I think a hybrid system is probably good. So for example, when I was the 15 years I was at that one independent shop, it was kind of a mix. So I had a salary. I got the same pay every week, and they tracked my hours, and I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 hours. If I booked over 35 hours, which I only think once booked less than that. But whatever the case, then it was like a bonus at the end of the week or the end of the month or whatever the case. And if it was over 50 hours, it was even more money, So a lot of times I was in the 55-hour range. Okay. That doesn't matter. I'm not trying to say I'm better or worse than anyone else, but at the same time, I knew I was getting a paycheck. And if it was time to sweep a floor, I swept the floor. Or if somebody needed help, I would drop what I was doing if I could. It was a good time, and go over and help them. Or if, the phone rang and the service writer was already on the other line with another customer, I would answer the phone and, hey, XYZ Auto Repair, can you please hold for a second, or whatever the case. It didn't matter. I was part of it. It was a small shop. Part of everything. And I really didn't care because it wasn't book time or flat rate, right? If I was flat rate, specifically solely flat rate, I might have had a different attitude. But since I knew I had benefits and I had a salary, and you know what? So if I lose 15 minutes by helping this person out, I still have a paycheck this week. And I would help them out, and partially because people helped me out when I was, up and running and learning. And to this day, I still do it when I go to shops, and I probably did it. I actually did it today on a 2011 Ford Fiesta with a network issue. Needs a PCM. It's corrupting the high-speed CAN bus. And I had the technician there, and the technician is, I don't even know how old he is. I'm 50. He's probably 65. I'm just taking a wild guess, right? And we were talking about the car. I'm like, the PCM is on this network, right? So there's a bunch of adults in the room, okay? You and I and whoever else in the room, and we're trying to talk to one another, but there's one screaming kid, and that screaming kid is screaming so loud that none of the other adults can talk. None of the other modules on the network can talk because that one damn screaming kid, right? And that screaming kid just so happens to be the PCM. We disconnect the PCM and all these other modules can communicate again. We got the screaming kid out of the room. We smacked him upside the head or whatever, however you would say, right? Which, I've got kids and I wouldn't do that, but, I would just tell them, shut up. But, we got rid of the screaming kid. So did I have to go through and do that explanation and show him the scope capture? No, I didn't. I could have said, here's what you need. Here's the bill. Call me back when you got the module because I'm going to have to come back and program and do the keys, and whatever. But no, I take the time. If the technician is willing to listen, I'll take the time and share some information with them. And does it cost me 15, 20 minutes? Sometimes, yes. But, somebody help me. I'm going to, people that want the help, I'm going to give them the help whenever I can. If I'm super busy, I might say, sorry, I'll talk to you about this later, off to the next car. But for the most part, I'll take 5 or 10 minutes to explain something if I have to.
Yeah. You're right with a hybrid, because there's got to be some incentive, right? Because if you're strictly hourly, you're not going to take that one last job, when you got, 15 minutes to go. Oh, okay, I could bang out that wheel bearing, or I could just go home. Well, I'm going to get paid the same anyways, or I'm going to get a little extra. So I get it, because it is a business. They got bills to pay. They got numbers to hit. So there definitely should be some incentive, but there's got to be, and I'm sure there is plenty of models out there. I don't run a business. I don't know this stuff. To make this work and more attractive for younger people to enter the industry. But yeah, if you're out there listening to this and you're on a purely flat rate system, maybe you can go shopping around and see who else in your town maybe does offer something like that, or suggest it to your employer.
Next up, I had Cody Gaddy join me to talk about what it's like to be a mobile diagnostic and programming technician.
Verizon works great on some areas. T-Mobile works great in other areas. But then, it seems like there's always some with technology, just like example, us today,
Yeah.
So, but it's working through, it's finding ways to work through it. Sometimes you just have to come back because there's some things just aren't working out. But the business and those problem cars are by far the hardest. But having a nice network or other guys you can bounce ideas off of, or even somebody saying like, hey, I had one do this and it was X, Y, and Z. Oh, I didn't even think about something like that. And it just gets your brain thinking. And how would you find this stuff out? Because it's not there on Identifix. It's not, this is from other guys that have been doing this longer than us, that have seen it. And how did they learn it? So them passing off the knowledge to us to help us out. And, it just, I don't know, it creates a community for us, which I think is awesome. I think networking is a huge part of being a technician or a drivability technician, or even a mobile diagnostician. I think that's a huge part of if you're looking at doing this, get yourself a network. Find some guys, reach out, and just see if you can find some guys that are willing to take some time away from their day to maybe walk you through some things. I had to call Ben Jameson the other day because I don't use the consult R2R that much. I've only used it a handful of times. I want to change that. I'm saving up for the factory pass through and stuff, but I just don't do it enough. And if I just would have read the directions, it would have been different. But him on the other line walking me through it. Okay, cool, man. Because I hate Nissan anyway. Like, I get scared just because, before you program anything, it sounds like you're ready to launch a missile. Make sure there's no cell phones with like 3 miles. Make sure you got the yellow tape around the vehicle and cones up, and there's no radio waves, and it's out in the middle of BFE. And oh man, I'm like, this is I just haven't done enough of them to be confident in them. It's not like doing a GM or a Chrysler where it's like, oh, okay, you just hit replace and reprogram. You just do this. It's super easy, but it's those little nuances, and just getting into doing Volkswagens and BMWs and stuff on programming. So now it's learning those, because that comes with its other set of challenges and stuff. But just know that you have guys like Matthew Skunkrich out there that. I know he gets a bad rap, but man, he's helped me out so many times that he'll yell at me. I don't care. Give me crap. I get it. Read service information, jackass. Like, I get that, Matt. Just what's going on? Okay, all right. Now that he yelled at you, then just tell me what am I doing wrong? But it's having those guys that have done it, that are willing to take time to help you along, and that's what it's all about. And that's why I'm sure you do this. And YouTube, as far as for myself, I try to give back where I can, and make it easier for all of us going to the future. So
Next up, episode 93, the one and only Keith Perkins join me to talk about his mobile business, online training business, and everything else that he's got going on.
Big value in buying a tool that I only use once or twice if it does a really unique job. So I had a Drive Pro, and then I bought a blue box because I saw one relatively inexpensive for what it was. Having the blue box, I was able to go do an early 2000s Jaguar programming at the Jaguar dealer in Tulsa.
No kidding.
So the job was, and I made a video on this. The car came in with a solenoid code for the transmission, and the solenoid's into the valve body, and it's got a TCM built on the valve body. It's a ZF transmission, and it's a 2004, 2, 3, or 4, something like that, 2, 3, or 4 Jaguar XK8. The dealer installed a replacement valve body assembly with TCM because it's the only way they could get it. They didn't see any programming options for it because all they had was the Davina device and the Pathfinder device. They didn't have a VCM1 anymore, so it didn't boot up legacy SDD like it used to if you had a VCM1. And so they went to program the PCM thinking the PCM and the TCM would go together, and it bricked the PCM part of the way through. So they got a replacement module, which was they said their cost was $3,800 for a replacement new module for the parts department. Went to go program that one, bricked that as well, part of the way through. So they kind of like got my number from a Euro specialty shop in town that uses me for some programming as well. Oddly enough, a Volkswagen specialty shop that doesn't have Otis. They have VCDS and they think that's good enough. So, it is what it is. So they use me for a lot of stuff, and they recommended me. So I came out there, and I had just happened to just recently get the blue box. So I call AutoLogic and I'm like, hey, what do I need to do this? The Drive Pro is it won't even start the program. He's like, no, don't use the Drive Pro. Use your blue box. The Drive Pro is JBox based. The blue box uses the older protocol. It should do this fine. And I was able to do that programming on the powertrain control module on a used one. Actually, we sourced a used one. Changed the VIN, kind of did like a PMI sort of on a Ford. We're able to configure it separately. And then went ahead and programmed the software into the replacement new TCM, got the vehicle going, did the theft. They had already got a second key for it, did all that, and it was a success. And ever since then, I've probably done 15 or 20 programmings on Jaguars or Land Rovers at that dealer.
No kidding.
On Jaguars or Land Rovers.
Wow.
So it turned out to be a good account.
Yeah.
I needed help the other day on a late model Land Rover where I was concerned that my diagnostic over internet protocol device for Pathfinder was the issue, and it turned out not to be, but I was able to call the dealer, drive the vehicle over there. They attempted to update as well and found out the module was just corrupted. It wasn't anything I was using that was the issue. So that has paid off for me. It's, had to spend a lot in subscriptions, didn't have to buy an extra $1,900 tool I didn't need.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that is a good point of knowing people at all these different shops, right? And whether it's dealerships or just independents. For me, it's transmission shops because I service a lot of transmission shops around here. And I'll also get calls on transmission diagnostics. And I built one transmission in my life. And otherwise, I just deal with the electronic portion, right? So when it comes to the inner workings, I'm not that great at it. So I'm getting on the phone with some of these guys that are really good at building them. Like, hey, what's this transmission supposed to do in this gear? Why would it be doing this? Or how's this work? And it's good to have those people in your pocket to phone a friend when you need it.
Definitely.
It's really cool getting to know all of the different people locally too, at different shops too, rather than just being on one island with one group of people. You get to see how everybody does it their own way. And I don't know, it's eye-opening in a lot of ways because certain shops will do things, just differently. And you're like, wow, I never thought about that. I never thought that you could do, X with Y, and it works out really well. I've enjoyed that quite a bit, seeing the differences from place to place.
I think that's kind of the secret to the mobile guys. Is we know so many people, and so many others are like, man, you know so much. I'm like, no, but I know who to call. That's the answer. Is I know who to call when I don't know. So that's kind of, that's the secret of the mobile guy anyway. So being shop to shop, you kind of get the feelers out, and when it comes time to like what we're doing with building a new shop and buying shop equipment, I made a lot of contacts. I'm like, hey, who's the best guy for a lift? And they're like, oh yeah, call my buddy Grant. He'll hook you up. They stock them. They'll come install them, do a great job, service them, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty interesting meeting all the shop owners and not just seeing how they run them. Because you're right. Like we go from one shop that's got, it's an amazing transmission shop, cleanest shop period you've been in, especially for a transmission shop. It's got the guy that runs it's got signs on the walls that say, your hands are dirty, don't touch the walls. They don't say if your hands are dirty. His sign says, your hands are dirty, don't touch the walls. And he kind of runs a super tight ship, but it's a really nice shop. And at the same time, we'll leave there, drive across town, and go into a shop that's got a dirt floor. And it's like, this is where we're at. Yeah. So you do kind of see all kinds, especially being mobile.
The next audio I've got here is from a great conversation that I had with Tommy Oliva and Brian Mann, both mobile technicians, and we talked about what it takes to start and run a successful mobile business.
The dealing with people thing is something that not every technician is really great at either, too, right? And that's a whole other skill set to learn. I mean, all the things you guys are talking about, like talking on the phone, getting the right information for people, but also for me, one of the things I struggled at is telling people no for certain things, or drawing a line certain places. And that might just be my own personality, but I've struggled with that and had to learn the hard way sometimes, is when to say no to something, to someone, whether it be a shop or a customer or whatever. But that, honestly, once you figure that out, makes your life a lot easier in a lot of ways. Just say, nope, that's not for me, no thanks.
There's definitely something to be said about learning how to say no. Like learning how to go, and you spend time and you're like, man, this is a real shit show. Do I ever want to deal with it? And learning how to say, you know what, man, sorry, I can't help you with this, man, this and this and this, and just walking away. I've had that issue because, my pride. I'm like, man, I'm not gonna let this car beat me. But dude, those cars are a total waste of time, and you can never, I don't care what anybody says, you can never build them all the time you spend on it. Time working on it, researching and stuff like that. And that's one of the advantages of the shop, where I'm like, all right, well, when I have some free time, I'll play with it, maybe make a case study out of it, get some money, on the back end that way. But realistically, man, we ain't heroes, bro. None of us have capes, dude. At the end of the day, yeah, we want to enjoy our work, but we're trying to make $1 here. And I think that's one of the things that I've struggled with, man, like learning how to say, no, I'm not gonna work on this salvage hunk of junk.
Your flood car. I mean, that's a big thing.
No, I'm not gonna do
I love it if I can
BMW
extract that information, that little piece of information. Oh, it sounds, that are like all these problems, and I got this 2018 Cadillac. It's a beautiful car. Well, yeah, well, okay, what's the catch, right? And and if I can just get them talking, there's times I'll try and extend the conversation, because the more you let them talk, and you'll find out it's a body shop owner, and he went ahead and decided to do he bought a flood car salvage, and it's like, I throw a high price out there sometimes, or I'll say no. I mean, I've said no, I don't work on flood cars, but if I know the customer, or I get the feeling like, hey, I'm going to throw a super high number out there, and if he says yes, well, that's cool. And, this is to start. I'll tell him, it's, hey, it's going to, if it's a flood car, I mean, I've done this, and you might have to take this off the thing. I'm at $500. You got a flood car? $500. I'll spend 2 hours. And if I decide after 2 hours I'm walking, it's $500. Oh, well, is it going to be fixed? Well, no. You're not listening to me. I mean, I've started playing hardball so hard, and that's what I got to do. I mean, I've done it, and it's actually working for the flood cars, because now either A, they go away and I don't even see them in the first place, or B, at that $500 for I'm there for 2.5 hours, I get I shouldn't say Tommy's problem, but I don't even know if it's a problem, but I get that ego problem now. It's like, wait a minute, I'm going to figure this thing out. I want to, I get that far into it. You give me 2 hours to play and research and look at diagrams and figure out what's what. Now I want to fix this thing. And, and I also got to stop, I'll make sure I stop and say, hey, we're at that point. Now it's X amount per hour. And I make sure I got a player. But pre-qualifying people, man, it's just so important, especially if you find salvage cars. I mean, for those guys thinking about going into mobile, I mean, so much you'll get the weird stuff. I mean, you're gonna get the weird stuff, the oddball stuff, people putting the wrong engines and transmissions and this and that, and asking you to program some Chrysler that's got the wrong crankshaft position sensor, or should I say the wrong crank in it. And I mean, so much of that I turn away anymore, just because usually it's not just one thing, it's multiple things you got going on there, and you can't. I don't do a good enough job explaining to the customer ahead of time to maybe even sell the job properly. If I could explain truly what needs to be done, I don't think I'd have a problem getting the money. But I get frustrated. I only have so much patience. I try to be a patient person. I want to be polite and understanding and listen, but also I get fed up. It's like, man, I could talk to you 20 minutes and you still don't have a clue what I'm talking about. Man, it's not good. Sean, how long have you been doing mobile stuff?
So I started in the summer of 18, very infrequently, and then it's kind of ramped up since then. And I teach during the school year, so 9 months out of the year, and then I'll do it in the afternoons and on a little bit on the weekends. So it's not a full-time gig by any means. I really enjoy it, so I keep doing it. It helps me in my teaching so that I can stay up on stuff. But this summer, for sure, like, it was a full-time job. And now, like, today was my first day back at school, so I've had to tell a bunch of shops no today. Like, yeah, sorry, I have this much time now every day. And I was looking into hiring somebody, and I had a bunch of other stuff that went on this summer, so I couldn't do it. But yeah, I don't know. It's so challenging to do this job, honestly. Some days, like you say, you program and it's easy and everything kind of works, but that's not every day. But there's so much challenge to it, and I don't know. I actually really enjoy it. Maybe not in the moment, but at the end of the week, looking back, I'm like, this is a very satisfying job. But I don't know. That's kind of the person I am. I don't know. I don't want a boring, monotonous job. I guess I want something that challenges me, and there's plenty of that in this job for sure.
Oh, for sure. Mobile is just any technician in any shop's going to have opportunity to learn and grow all the time, but when you go mobile, I mean, it's like hyperdrive, man. It's like it really puts you to the test. I know trying to make videos and stuff like I do sometimes, and Tommy, I think you put together some stuff and case studies. Boy, that makes you learn. The one thing I love about doing videos, and this is almost embarrassing, but hey, I got a lot of stuff that's never made it to YouTube or never made it anywhere, because I'm looking like, man, if these people only knew the route I took off of step one, this is embarrassing or whatever. I didn't put it up there. Now I'm looking back at wishing I had a lot of that footage, because I can learn from it. But putting together a story to show people what the step-by-step was, it makes me learn and grow more advanced than I have before. There's another mobile guy in Cleveland, and he's been expanding, doing his little thing too. And I told him that. I mean, we talk, we may be competitors or whatever, but it's still cool. We're friends. And I told him, I was like, listen, you want to become a better technician. You're doing all this stuff for body shops, just pretty much strictly programming, a little bit of ADAS, and he does this and that. I'm like, okay, you want to really get better at diagnosing? Just film yourself. Just take your cell phone and film, like, step by step, little snippets, and piece it together at the end of the day. Don't even have to share it with anybody. Just put it together to see if you can make the story tell to yourself. And you're going to look at that and be like, why didn't I do this first? Why didn't I do that first? Or what, what am I doing? This is silly. I should have thought about the problem like this. Stepping back and looking back at the big picture is really fun. I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, it's easy to just fly through everything in a day if you actually do make some notes and document stuff and then look back on it. Yeah, like you said, you can learn a lot of what could I have done better here? How could I have streamlined this more? Where did I screw up? What I missed, or what I do good, right? Like, oh, that was efficient. What I did there, I need to bottle that and apply it to other areas. So it's a little time consuming in the moment to maybe take screenshots or videos or whatever, but looking back on that stuff, it helps anybody out. You don't even have to put it up. Just
speaking of the time management, I mean, you can see this, but I'll make sure you can hear this. Hold on, let me see. Maybe you can hear it. Okay, I hope. You see, I wear the dorky Timex watch. My customers know. I walk through the door, they hear beep, they hear the beep. I make it obvious. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I make sure they know, because there's been too many times where I don't know how much time I got into something. I'm like, well, I think I got here at 10:30 and, whatever. And, I'll be honest with you, I answer a couple phone calls most times, in the middle of something. Sometimes I don't, but, I keep a stopwatch going, and there's my time. Look, I was here I was here an hour and 20 minutes or whatever. So, hey, I'll charge them 1.25. That's good enough, close enough for me, right? And there are usually no problem with it. I found that since I started using my stopwatch to actually time myself, I'm getting paid more. I mean, that's all there is to it. Keeping track of that, because it used to be a long time ago. Well, actually, any of my programming work, generally, it's a flat fee. I don't, it's going to be X amount per this job. I roll up there, I take care of it. And if it takes me, 20 minutes, or if it takes me 10 minutes, or if it takes me 45 minutes, well, it's whatever I quoted you. That's what I stand by. But for the diagnostic stuff, it's X amount for the first hour and this much per hour after that. And I make sure I get that.
Yeah, Diag it's just not easy to charge sometimes, man. No matter what you do, or sometimes you just get your butt kicked. And but definitely, I'd say the best advice from the mistakes that I've made: stick to your gun, stick to your game plan, and stick to your pricing. Yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of people out there cheaper, man, like a bunch, and that's why I don't get programming. My dealer's not cheap around here. Like last time before the strike, because my General Motors dealer right now is closed. My closest one. The last time I checked, they were $182 out the door for a programming event or 1 hour job.
Wow.
That's their labor hour plus the part, like the service charge or whatever the hell, the shop charge, shop fee. So roughly all the dealers in Chicago are about $180 to $190 an hour. So that's what they charge, and I'm like GM. I'm right now. I'm pretty much 150, everything American except certain year Chryslers, like $200 for Chrysler. So I'm definitely like not one of the cheaper ones, but then they got guys running around with a couple Altels that do keys for $40, and they do actually most of the quote unquote programmings, and so I don't get a lot of those. It's mainly like I only get programmings honestly when it's part of a diag. He's like, oh, you're already here. Can you program this computer for me?
Okay.
All right, cool. Because I'm just right here and I can do it right now. But
We got some guys running around that still have the old TISC computer disc, the old whatever, the CD, and then they'll do the program. They'll do it $75. I'm like, whatever, dude, you're killing yourself. Why do that? And then, of course, I'll get called out. Well, we got this 2009. He couldn't do it. I'm like, well, yeah, he doesn't have, he doesn't have anything legit, man. Come on.
Dude, I had a guy, and this is a really funny story. I have a buddy that works at my GM dealer. A very cool dude. We went to high school together. We're close. We're good friends. And I go to a couple shops, and I get calls, and I just started noticing this pattern that I would get a lot of GM calls when he was out of town, but I never put two and two together because he never told me he was going out to shops. Right, and they're like, "Oh no, man, this guy charged me $100. He's just out of town." I said, "Well, it's $40 for GM, man. I gotta at least make $100. I'll do one because, like I said, I'm usually like 140, 150. So, I mean, I'll do 140. I mean, that's the best I can do. And no, man, I'm just gonna wait till he comes back. Okay, I mean, and then like I find out like we're over at his house for dinner, and then he just, oh yeah, no, I charge $100. I'm like, hey, man, you're the fucking asshole running around charging $100 for GM. Dude, you're an idiot. And he's like, but it's just an easy $100. I says, nah, dude, like, you don't really realize you're devaluating yourself, man. How many do you do a week? I don't know, 5? Okay, so every 2 weeks you're doing 10, right? Yeah. I'm like, charge 140. He's like, that's $400 you're losing out on.
Okay, and next up, I've got me and Matt Fonslow talking about transferring knowledge to the next generation of automotive technicians.
But I just remember not necessarily being a car guy. I think my favorite car as a kid, probably in late elementary school, maybe early middle school, was a Grand National. And it's not because I saw it in a magazine. It's not because I saw it on television or anything like that. It's because a guy who kind of rented some space on my parents' farm to store firewood. He would go up to the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and sell firewood by the truckload. So he stored all his firewood in stacks there to dry. And with his firewood money, because he did that to stop drinking. So instead of drinking away his money, he spent his money on chainsaws, gas, bar oil, and then he'd go out in the woods and, that's how he spent his time instead of drinking. And
Okay.
so he took that money over the course of however many years, I don't know, maybe it was only a couple of years, I don't know, but he bought himself a 1987 Buick Grand National, not the GNX, just a Grand National. And to me, it was a cool looking black car that one day he's up in our machine shed waxing, and my dad and I are up there working on one of the tractors. And he's like, hey, Fred, my dad, you got to go for a ride in this thing. I think this could have taken so-and-so's car back in the day, because I guess they went to high school together or within a few grades of each other, and they would go down to whatever area and drag race their cars, like something straight out of American Graffiti or something. I don't know. And my dad's like, yeah, okay, whatever. What's it got in it? Oh, a V6. Take so-and-so's car with a V6. You're a funny guy. But anyways, he finishes waxing it, and we're still putzing on this tractor, and he's like, let's go for a ride. Let's go for a ride quick. You gotta feel this. You gotta check this out. I think I'd have gave him a run. Okay. So away we go. And I'm sitting in the back seat, and that thing, that was an intense experience. And my dad's like, does not a V6. You funny guy. Yeah. We can get home, pops the hood. And of course, does it say, I think it just says 3.8 liter Cephei on the top.
Is it the turbo one?
Yeah.
On that one?
But I know it says turbo and 3.8, but I don't know that it says V6 on it. But you open the hood and obviously it's a V6. And so from then on, that was my favorite car. But I was never really the car guy. Go to 2-year school. The first day of school, we get a tour of the shop, see the scan tool. Boom. Like, that's cool. That's all I care about. I could give a rip about differentials and transfer cases and alignments. Pfft. Anyways, from my very first job, and even at school, it was just a question a minute, always asking. If I was my first job at a Ford dealership, supposed to be doing car prep and lube tech duties, but I was always getting busted looking over the fender of what someone else was doing. What are you doing? I put together the SBDS that the dealer got sent, and that was my lesson, that the dealers don't really go page through a catalog and go, oh, we got to get this. No, it showed up with a bill. Here's the invoice. Okay. You need this. So I put the SBDS together. I had no idea what it was or what it did. I had no idea. And then when they were using it, like, I had to know what they were doing. Like, I get in trouble, a lot of trouble over it. But I don't have anybody that's has worked at a shop I've worked at or worked under me or anything like that. I've just never witnessed somebody always kind of bouncing around. Not that I want them screwing around as much as I did, but genuinely interested. What are you doing? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
How do you know? What does this squiggly line mean? And SBDS would tee into the harness between the engine control module. It would tee into that, and so it would get some raw data, and you could graph that out. And I had to know, like, what does that mean? Why are we looking at that? And needing to know, trying to understand it, going back to school, going like, well, Can you explain to me why Ford has a pip signal that goes to an ICM that then gets spat out as a spout that goes to the engine control module and then comes back? What? I don't understand. And they may not be able to answer it quite right, but then digging through the training manuals, because all the training manuals are in the plastic bags yet at the dealership, and stealing them and going home and trying to read them, and I haven't run into that yet, and I think it won't have to be at that level, but man, it'd be nice to have that type of curiosity. Like, I want to know as much as I can know.
Okay, let's bring this one home. One of my more recent episodes, 107, Daryl Cahorn. We talked about quite a few different things in the automotive industry, but one of them are favorite TV shows. So we're going to cover that here. I don't watch a whole lot of TV these days.
And why? And why?
Oh, okay. All right. I don't watch a whole lot of TV these days, and I know there's a lot of good stuff out there, but I'll be honest, I haven't had the time recently. So I'm gonna go way back to some other shows. And honestly, when I was growing up, I was I'm still a big nerd. Obviously, I'm podcasting about diagnosing cars, but I was a big nerd growing up too. And I was really into Star Trek. Okay. So, and people can make fun of me. I don't care. It was, the Next Generation, the 90s one with, Patrick Stewart, and that, I would turn that on right now and probably watch 4 or 5 episodes of it. Love that show. So that would be my pick. So here's why, because I like the science fiction side of things. I like the technology. I've always been drawn towards that stuff, and they got spaceships and, crazy computers and all that stuff, but they were always trying to solve a problem, right? Through the whole episode. And the problem would keep beating them. They're trying to overcome this obstacle, and it looks like everything's going to go terribly. Yep. And then in the last 10 minutes of the show, they solve the issue. And then, same thing next week, but it was always just, you're trying to think along the same thing. It's almost like a mystery. Like, they're trying to get to this solution. How are they going to fix this problem? And yeah, it was always very, very interesting to me. So that would be my pick.
I like that. For me, a show that I discovered and fell in love with right away is, have you ever watched House MD?
Oh, sure. Yeah, fantastic.
I love that show. I've got the whole season, the 8-season set of it. So
okay,
that's how much I like it. That mainly because that show, if you think about it, is all diagnostics.
Yep.
And it's about those problems that nobody else could fix until it came to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be, what appears, it's typically something that appears to be a super rare, unsolvable case, and ends up being something simple. We deal with that same thing in automotive.
Oh yeah.
And then every once in a while, there's just, no matter how much you look at something, there are some things. It's not that you can't diagnose it. It's just there are some things where you get to the point where you can't fix it without something drastic.
Right.
So, but the fact that it's dealing with diagnostics and it follows a lot of theories, they're up front. They got the interview. I mean, they're gathering information. What's the symptom? What kind of problems you have, and then they're using their equipment to get some information.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have their, kind of their own test drive process where they're doing some lab tests or whatnot to get some insight onto what the root problem could be. And then they go through some diagnostic workflow of, try this, try that, and see what the result ends up being. it just, if I think it follows along completely well with what we do
For sure.
in automotive diagnostics.
Yeah.
And it's all about problem solving. And for whatever reason, maybe I'm a nerd. I'm perfectly fine with that. I tell everybody I'm a nerd from the hills of Tennessee, and I'm completely fine with that. But I just really like that show, and it's about being investigative and using problem solving skills and doing something that apparently a lot of other people can't do, and being that go-to guy.
The other thing I liked about that show, right? So House Hughes, this brilliant doctor who always, got to the solution and fix a problem or diagnosed whatever, but he wasn't able to do it without his team of other doctors, and they'd sit down in the conference room and they'd write out stuff on the whiteboard, right? Like they'd bounce ideas off of him. And even if they weren't the right ones, it got him thinking about, oh, I need to go check this. And, he'd do something and the problem was solved. But that him, this brilliant doctor, he needs those other people to connect with and to bounce ideas off of and to like mind map the stuff, right? Like let's put it out on a whiteboard and see where this gets us. And I mean, honestly, that sort of stuff benefits us too if you actually take the time. Okay, I'm getting beat up here. Let's do a mind dump here. Let's write this stuff out. Take a legal pad, write it out, or contact some other people too. Bounce some ideas off of some colleagues. Be like, I'm just getting my butt kicked by this thing. What am I doing wrong? And even if they don't give you the answer, they nudge you in the right direction. They get you thinking about the right thing. So that part of it, huge in our industry. All right, that's going to wrap up 2021, the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. This was actually really cool. It's more time consuming than I thought it was going to be going into it, going through the year's episodes, but also just really, really eye-opening to see how many awesome people that I talked to this year. I can't say enough. Just want to thank everybody for taking their time to put their thoughts out there and share them with me. It's awesome. I can't say enough of how cool it is just to be able to talk with the premier people in the automotive industry. And I hope you feel that same way listening to these conversations, that these people are donating their time to you for free to share their knowledge and experience and life lessons with you. It's huge. So I'm super lucky that I get to do this, and I'm going to keep on doing this for 22. We're going to have another awesome year. Podcast is going to keep going up. And hey, you want to be on the show, reach out to me. I don't think I've turned anybody down so far. If you want to come on and talk about this stuff, you're interested in it, you're passionate about it, you're a halfway decent human being, I'll have you on the show. Just hit me up. Facebook. There's a Facebook group. The link's in the show notes. Along with all these episode links. You want to listen to the whole episode? You got it. Go binge this stuff. But hey, also, finally, a big thank you to you for listening, right? This is why I do it, right? I could just talk to people and not record it, but I'm putting it out there to benefit other people. And thank you for listening. I see the feedback. I see the downloads. It's phenomenal. You guys are awesome and you make the show. So with that all being said, we're going to keep rocking strong, but let's all get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.